Alright, so Thragg versus Battle Beast is one of the best fights in Invincible comics. This fight stemmed from Alan the Alien and the Coalition of Planets wanting to go and kill Thragg when he was exiled back when Nolan became Emperor. So he was going to send Battle Beast. Obviously, he knows how strong Battle Beast is, but he also had more plans in the works where he actually was not just planning on sending Battle Beast. He was going to send Ragnar's and other people to potentially help in defeating Thragg by any means necessary, only he wasn't going to disclose this information to Battle Beast beforehand. That's a big mistake, as we'll see. I want to give my thoughts on this fight, scaling the fight, who I actually think is stronger, because there's varying opinions. Despite it being a clear-cut winner, there's varying opinions on who's actually stronger, so I kind of wanted to give an analysis on it, break down why I believe this person is stronger and for what reasons. So as I said, Battle Beast was believing that he was going to be the only one challenging him to a 1v1. He dives down to the planet. Alan obviously was able to pinpoint where he was going to land based on how much distance he could span in one breath. Battle Beast lands with two weapons, two blades, looks like a straight beast, and you get this pan out shot where somebody says they sent you to kill me, and of course it is Thragg. Now Thragg pulls up and he says, I have defeated you before easily, if I recall. What he's referring to is, of course, when they had a brief skirmish in space. Now, of course, Battle Beast is massively nerfed in space as he cannot fly, so it's not really an accurate gauge. All that happened was that Battle Beast tried to off guard him when he was beating on Nolan and Mark, and then Thragg kind of sidestepped him, slapped him in the face, and just sent him away as a nuisance. So I understand why Thragg thinks that this could potentially be an easy fight, but it seems that Thragg isn't completely ignorant to the strength Battle Beast possesses, as when Battle Beast takes offense and says that contest between us was never finished, you'd be a fool to claim victory, Thragg replies with, we'll see, before I kill you, I have to admit you are powerful and I could certainly use an ally. So he thinks he's powerful, but not as powerful as him. If battle is all you lust for, I can provide that. Why don't you join me? Battle Beast replies with, it is true, I crave battle above all else, but I yearn for not only my equal, but also my better, one who can provide me with a glorious death, but that doesn't mean I have no honor. You are asking me to join you? My answer will be written in your innards, once I release them from your, and he gets cut off. Now, of course, he gets cut off by the Ragnars deploying down onto Thragg. This was actually kind of a backstab from his own lover, who was in on the Coalition of Planets plan, but the room for interpretation here is, did Alan give her an order or suggestion to drop the Ragnars early, or did she decide to do this of her own volition? Here she even apologizes to Battle Beast, saying that she had to do this because she cannot live to see Battle Beast die in front of her. So you could be led to believe that she did this of her own volition, but it does say that Alan made her promise something. And if you guys didn't know, Alan does be moving a little sinister in this series. So in my opinion, it's pretty likely that Alan was a driving force behind this, because at the end of the day, he doesn't really care if Battle Beast gets his glory. He wants Thragg dead. Now, Battle Beast actually gets pissed off here when he sees this, as he screams out no and says, I was assured that they would be released only upon my death. Why have you betrayed me? So he did know that they were sending Ragnars, but he didn't believe that they were going to be sending them out unless he died first. Now I count about 9 of them here, and they immediately target Thragg and start gashing him up. At least 3 to 4 of them were on Thragg. It's unclear if the 4th one was facing off with Battle Beast or going for Thragg initially, but Battle Beast takes out that number 4. You then see Thragg has one of the initial ones that tried grabbing him in the chokehold, and then another one bites his arm, another one's attacking him from the front. It's just a madhouse right here. Battle Beast ends up taking out 2 more with his bladed weapons. One of his blades gets lodged in one of their skulls. Thragg is still getting jumped by 3. One of them starts ripping his stomach, another one comes in, adds to the wound, and he is getting beat up. Battle Beast, though, after dispatching the Ragnars he had defeated, helps Thragg by defeating the one that was putting him in a chokehold, cutting clean through its body. And basically, they start wiping him out. You see Thragg here, who's pretty gravely injured as part of his stomach is hanging out, says, you are a fool to assist me, and Battle Beast replies, this planet will be torn apart by the fury of our clashing. I will allow nothing to steal that away from me. I have longed for this day. At that point, some of the Thraxans come to Thragg's aid, and they're prepared to try to help him, and they start killing Ragnars as well. More creatures interrupt my battle, as you see a Battle Beast girl say, they're killing all the Ragnars, you need to kill Thragg now, while he's injured and distracted. Of course, that's when Battle Beast screams out no, and he says, Advantage, distraction, that is an affront to all I stand for. What I do will have meaning. I will at long last prove I am worthy of my gift. You will give me the glory of battle that I have yearned for. I will do nothing to sully this victory. And he actually stabs himself, cleaves through his own stomach to match the wound on Thragg. Thragg in turn did tell the other Thraxans to leave them as well, seemingly ready to honor the 1v1. At this point, Thragg yells at Battlebeast and says, "Yet you treat this like a game." And Battlebeast says, "This is no game. This is what I live for. This is my life." Thragg stares him down, says truer words, and it trails off. We don't know what he was going to finish saying or thinking, but they face off there. We also see that Battlebeast has dispatched his weapons, probably because he would deem it unfair to use them, given that Thragg is unarmed. Now, there's some dispute about the wounds that both received. Some people believe that Battlebeast's wound is more severe. I disagree. There's a shot that we're going to see later that kind of shows that the wounds are very similar. I don't think that even from a narrative purpose, one is supposed to be far greater than the other. I think they're supposed to be relative. I think that's the whole reasoning for it. You could potentially argue that, Battlebeast's pride isn't just like he wants to make it even. He wants to like give himself the disadvantage. But I don't really see any evidence of that. We'll get more into this later. But for now, the actual action starts. The two of them charge at each other, and we get this montage of some of the coolest action you're going to see. Thragg lands a combo on Battlebeast, one to the face and then a couple to the body, and then ends up sending Battlebeast flying down to the ground. He follows this up with an elbow strike, a diving elbow strike from the air, which lands to the back of Battlebeast. Now, when he does this though, Battlebeast is prepared, and he actually uses this moment as Thragg is lodging his elbow into his back to coil his head around and chomp Thragg's face. His entire head. He splits his head wide open and actually causes massive amounts of damage to Thragg's right eye. Thragg wails in agony and throws Battlebeast off of him. Battlebeast lands and then says, "I sense my victory is near." As Thragg screams out, "No, you fight for glory while I fight for the existence of my people, whom I am sworn to protect at all costs. I will not fall." Now what I see here is that Thragg looks like he's clearly got the upper hand initially. Obviously, he landed unanswered shots early, sends Battlebeast flying to the ground, and then sets up for the elbow strike, which I think he thought was going to be the finisher. Now, he got a little overzealous with that, and he wasn't expecting Battlebeast's move of obviously enduring the elbow strike to land his own bite on Thragg's face. It's very clear that he's caught by surprise when this attack lands on him. Now, taking nothing away from Battlebeast, it's a great IQ moment, and it's just a great move, which was probably the most significant damage that he dealt to Thragg personally. But I will say, I don't think that at this point in the battle, Thragg is taking him that serious. So I actually think that the whole reason this feat actually even transpires is because of the off guard. But alas, we will continue. We actually cut away for a bit after that, as unfortunately they cut away a lot in this fight. But when we come back, we see that Thragg has once again launched Battlebeast up into the sky with an uppercut. After this, they cut away again to where we come back, and for the first time in this fight, it seems that Battlebeast has actually taken control without Thragg just not expecting it. We see Battlebeast is on top of Thragg, choking him out with both hands and also biting through his left arm. This is a very dominant position for Battlebeast, and we don't get to see how Thragg gets out of it, but of course he does get out of it by the time we come back to the fight. When we come back to the fight, both are standing up, and we get a very clear shot of the damage that Thragg was dealt from that bite, which still serves to be the most damage he's taken thus far, besides the obvious Ragnar injuries. Battlebeast screams out, "I thirst for blood," and Thragg replies with, "Then I will drown you in your own," in a savage moment. At that very moment, you see once again Thragg rushes down Battlebeast, is able to land a punch on him, which sends him flying. At that point, it seems Battlebeast recovers, ricochets back toward Thragg, and goes to try to bite his face once more, but this time he can only pin him down as Thragg is able to ward off the jaws and block the bite. Thragg calls him a maniac and says, "Is this the battle you've been longing for?" And Battlebeast says yes, as he ends up striking him down with a double fist slam from the air. So we don't really know how they got back into the air like that, but regardless, Battlebeast sends Thragg flying to the ground. Now, at this point, it seems that before hitting the ground, Thragg was able to fly back up, reverse the position, and put Battlebeast in a chokehold. Battlebeast did throw Thragg off of him at some point that we do not see, but he got him off of him, and they end up in this epic moment here, where both of them lunge toward each other, Thragg from the sky and Battle Beast from the land below. We cut away one final time before returning to see this epic cover of issue 120 as we see the damage that Thragg was inflicted all over his face as his literal eye is split in half. We don't know what transpired near the end of this fight, but we do know that Thragg won in this moment as Battle Beast is laying on his back, barely uttering the words thank you, as Thragg coiled his intestines around his wrist, climbed all the way up to where his heart was, and grabbed his heart and crushed it and said, "It's done then," proclaiming his victory once and for all as we see him collapse after killing Battle Beast, to which the Thraxans arrive and obviously heal him up. Now they don't just do that though, they also recovered Battle Beast's body, to which Thragg skinned and wore as a coat going forward in the series, in one of the most savage moments in all of Invincible, in my opinion. I don't think it's out of disrespect. He respects Battle Beast greatly after the fight, but it is still amazing. He's wearing his op as a fur coat, man. It is cool as hell. Now, going back into the fight, unfortunately, like I did say, we have a lot of things that we have to kind of imagine for ourselves as they cut away in a lot of pivotal moments that we don't really get to see what exactly transpired. But what I can tell you is that throughout this fight, you got a clear discrepancy in speed, in my opinion. It was very clear that Thragg was able to land more strikes on Battle Beast, and he was landing without Battle Beast really being able to defend. Thragg had the upper hand for most of the fight, and like I said, the only damage that Battle Beast really was able to inflict on him was from the initial off guard, so to speak, when he chomped his face. After that, even with one eye missing, Thragg was able to win. So he was kind of nerfed from the beginning, as he obviously is only going to have sight in one of his eyes. From that moment, his eyes literally split in half, which should, you know, limit a lot of factors like perception, all these different things, and still was able to overpower Battle Beast many times. Now, Battle Beast did have his moments though, as I mentioned. There was an instance here, we don't really know the context of it, but he got on top of Thragg, had him down, had moments where he was knocking him around, but Thragg seemed to recover pretty decisively, and obviously it led to the final moments. Now, some people talk about the fact that, well, if Battle Beast didn't cut his own stomach open, Thragg wouldn't have had a way to finish him, because the way he finishes him is going through the wound that he created and obviously going up and grabbing his heart. But I say to you, the same thing could have been done for Battle Beast, as Thragg literally had basically the same wound. That's why I show this panel here, because they show basically the same thing for both of them. They have similar wounds. Not to mention the other thing where it's like, yeah, Thragg is also down an eye here. Also, you have to take into account that Battle Beast, even though he did discard his weapons, which other people will bring up as another argument, he has innate weapons in his anatomy, in his claws and his fangs, that Thragg does not possess. Thragg, being a Viltrumite, has very humanoid features. He obviously doesn't have these talon-like things that can carve people up. So it's much more dangerous fighting somebody like Battle Beast if everything else is equal. That being said, of course, Thragg makes up for that because he has the capabilities of flight. Battle Beast, again, though, has these slicing things, and that's what allowed him to do the majority of his damage, obviously. Now, getting back to the point of people saying that Battle Beast discarded his weapons, he potentially could have won with his weapons. It's possible that he could have won with his weapons. I mean, Thragg is unarmed here, but we'll never know, and it doesn't change his stats. His speed, his strength, all these things are still going to remain the same. You could potentially argue things like AP overall if you deem the blade more lethal than his claws and fangs, and potentially argue reach because he has more reach with a longer bladed weapon. But you could then counter argue that the blade could be heavier, obviously as there's more weight to the blade, which could in turn slow down his attacks. And even if you still did believe that, you know, Battle Beast would win with the bladed weapons, that defeats the whole purpose of the battle. That would essentially mean to Battle Beast, who's extremely prideful, that he's conceding that with his own power that he was born with and that was bestowed upon him, he cannot beat Thragg in unarmed combat. He will not have that. And some people may argue that he was able to cut down the Ragnars with a lot more ease, but it's going to be easier using blades to do so, especially when the Ragnars are really there to target Thragg anyway, and started off with jumping him. Battle Beast was never in a position where he was compromised. And if we want to talk about people taking down the Ragnars with these, look at these random Thraxans wiping out Ragnars, one-shotting them with their blasters. Like shit, why don't we give Thragg a blaster if we're giving everybody weapons in this fight? If this blaster can pierce through Ragnars, it can surely pierce through Battle Beast, right? Or affect him to some extent, you'd think. So the Ragnar performance in totality is irrelevant, given that they have different circumstances. Now, again, we don't know really of any proficiency that Thragg may possess with a weapon, but if we give him a weapon, what changes there as well? Like, we could give him another blade. I'm sure he can use it with some kind of proficiency. If he can just get a bladed weapon, he can do some damage with it. It doesn't have to be supreme levels of excellency with it. Just a situation where the whole premise of the battle is that they're fighting on an equal playing field here. In my mind, I think it's very clear that Thragg was the superior between the two of them in their interactions. I don't think that the factors outside of the actual battle really changed the scaling between the two of them. And you could say that at any point, if Thragg really wanted to, he can try to use all his energy to get Battle Beast up into the atmosphere, up into space, if he really wanted to take it there for an advantageous situation. As an overall combatant, Thragg is going to be much more of a problem for anybody else, given obviously that he can fight in any arena, not just on land. And as I said, he showcased more impressive moments within the fight with more consistency, and inevitably was able to win the fight. I do think that Thragg is stronger. I think that Battle Beast thinks that Thragg is stronger, as the premise for the fight was he wanted to find somebody that was surpassing the level of being an equal and being greater than him. And when he's asked if this was the fight he sought, he said yes, and then he says thank you, telling us he deemed this as the guy that was worthy enough to beat him. I'll leave it at that for you guys. I'm sure some people will still disagree. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and let me know if you want to see more Invincible content like this. See you guys in the next one. Peace.